Hey, hope you're doing well this Friday. Welcome to the Fetta Effect. I've been talking to you guys all week. I'm excited for our show today. So we're going to be talking investing. We're going to be talking specific investing. And the reason that I'm doing this video today is I actually posted, I think it was maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, I actually posted 4 different types of investments that I think are good income investments. And I asked people, which ones would you like to learn about? So they said, these were the ones they wanted to learn about. So we're going to talk about today the 4 types of investments that I like best. Okay. Before we can do that, as always, we need to understand what the words even mean, right? So the word invest, when you're talking about finances, when you go to the origin of the word, it actually means to clothe your capital, right? Now, I don't do definitions. The reason I don't do definitions is because definitions get changed based on what country you're in, based on what era you're in, based on what cultural influence the government or the controlling forces want you to have over what words mean. And so I don't trust when the dictionary says, hey, wealth means an abundance of material possessions. That's what they want me to think. So I'm not going to say that I agree with that definition. So that's why we do root word origins. So when you go to the origin of the word invest, it literally means to clothe your capital, right? So we've talked about this, to clothe your capital. So you need to look at, you're putting clothing on your money, or you're putting money into clothing. And so we're going to talk about my 4 favorite types of clothing for my money. And the reason that I pick these is because just like my clothes, they're clothings that I like. It's clothing that I understand, and it's clothing I can commit to, right? Those are always the 3 that we talk about. The 4th one is cash flow. Okay, so when we look at clothing our capital, do you like the clothing that you're putting your money in? Okay, if you don't, probably not a good place to put it, right? The second thing we look at, do you understand the clothing that you put your money in? Okay, I'm a guy, I don't understand high heels, so I don't wear them, right? I think that wears my knees out. If I wore them, I'd have a back pain. They don't make logical sense. I don't wear them, okay? And then same with investing. There's certain investments where I look at it, and I'm like, dude, that doesn't make any sense. Right? One of those investments is a Roth IRA mutual fund share, or a traditional IRA mutual fund share, or a 401k mutual fund share. I have a lot of problems, convincing myself, hey, I'm going to save for this thing called retirement, which I really don't know what it is. Like when I get there, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to save for something that I don't know what it is, give the money to someone I don't know to buy something that's invisible, to pay them fees for something I may not even get, right? That doesn't make sense to me. So I don't pick those investments. So investments you like, investments you understand, investments you can commit to, okay? When you're investing in the real world, you get in a bad investment, dude, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard for you to get out of that investment without losing money or paying fees or having something negative happen, okay? So clothing our capital, that's what this means. So for those of you that are just joining, we're going to talk my 4 favorite investments. The 4th reason that we invest is for cash flow. Okay, we do not invest for appreciation. That's called hope, and we don't invest on hopium. Okay, we do not invest for appreciation because we can't control it. Ultimately, when you inflation adjust it, oftentimes it doesn't exist. You don't have any control over what it does. So if it happens, nice, cool, awesome. We're not going to rely on it or try and do that game. We want income, cash flow, money coming into your pocket every month. Okay, that's something you can control, and that's something you can be profitable with. All right. So when we're investing, we need to look at what we want as far as cash flow is concerned. My buddy Jay sent me a text yesterday. It was actually from George Foreman. It's one of my favorite quotes, but he says that it's not about the age you want to retire. It's about what income you want to retire. Okay. So when you look at investing, you need to look at what income am I trying to achieve? And so that's why we're going to be talking income investments. All right. So I have filibustered long enough. We're going to get into it. So the first investment that I'm going to talk about today that I enjoy is private lending. Okay. Now, for those of you that don't know, there's 2 kinds of private lending. I'm not going to talk about one of those today. The one that I'm not going to talk about is hard money lending. Hard money lending would be if you're a lender and you're funding maybe a flip. You're going to give somebody a 6-month loan on a really high interest rate, and they're going to go flip houses with it. Okay. That's not one that I talk about because, again, it's something that's for a person that's more experienced. It's almost the day trading of private lending. You really need to know your stuff. You really need to be on top of it, okay? So we're only talking income lending. So private lending looks like this. let's say that I have $100,000 and it's sitting in my old 401k or sitting in my old IRA. Okay, now this is something we actually help clients with. That money is sitting there and it's not doing anything. It's losing value. It's being feed to death. And so I can actually find an investor. Let's see who's watching. I think John Rodriguez is watching. So let's pick on John. So let's say John wants to buy a investment property and he's like, man, I found a 12-plex in Anchorage. It's a great deal. This is the cash flow on it. And John needs funding. All right, so I can be John's funding. I can say, hey, John, I have $100,000 and I will lend you my $100,000 as the down payment or as part of the payment for the investment. And then you can pay me an interest rate. So you can pay me, maybe it's a balloon payment where you're going to pay me interest only. And at the 10th year, the 15th year, you send me my balloon payment back and I've collected interest. Maybe it's a P&I deal where I get, 8% principal and interest for whatever the length of the term is. But I essentially, in this investment, could be the bank for John Rodriguez, and I could lend him my $100,000, and John's going to pay me interest. Now, if John defaults, I'm going to seize the property, and I'm probably going to keep it and either rent it out, or I'm going to owner finance it and have someone else start paying me a debt payment as well, or I can flip it and sell it and make a profit. Okay, so that's what private lending looks like. That's one of my favorite cash flow investments. That's something that we help clients with. The reason that I like private lending is for the person that doesn't necessarily have enough money to go buy a bunch of, apartment units or start a business or something of that nature. It's a good, easy way to invest for income. And it's going to be something where you can get in at a lower level, at a lower dollar amount, right? So if I had $100,000 and I'm not owner occupying, I can probably get a crappy fourplex in Anchorage. And that's going to pay me maybe $800 a month cash flow at the end of the day, and it's going to be a headache, and I'm not going to get a ton of money out of that. Whereas with private lending, if I say, hey, John, I'll lend you my $100,000 at a 12% interest only rate, John's going to pay me $1,000 a month for the end of the term, right? Till the deal's done. If he defaults, I'm going to take that building away from him. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to owner finance it. I'm going to rent it out to somebody else, okay? So that's private lending. A couple things you need to watch out for with private lending. You need to make sure that you have it all in writing. If you're doing a private lending deal, you need to have the entire contract written out. You need to have your security agreements, your promissory notes, your collateral. You need to make sure the asset is secured. You need to know, how am I getting my money back? Okay, if you're the investor, you need to know, when do I get my money back? What are the terms? How long is it going to take? And if something goes wrong, how does this play out? It all needs to be done in writing. Okay, so private lending, not some sort of a handshake you do with somebody. It's a very formal process. Treat it like you actually are the bank. Ask to see the numbers. Do your due diligence. So that's the first investment I like. And the reason, again, is because it produces a great amount of cash flow, and you don't have to deal with tenants. You don't have to deal with the building. It's for somebody that truly just says, hey, I want income and I don't want to deal with all of this stuff. If I've got that money in an IRA and I work 40 hours a week, boom, I stick it into a lending deal. It's going to sit there and grow. I don't have to think about it, and I'm good, right? So that's one of my favorite entry levels. Now, the next one I'm going to talk about is probably, I don't know if it's my favorite. It's up there, though. It's multifamily commercial income real estate, okay? Multifamily, okay, meaning that there are multiple units, multiple families that are going to occupy the building, and it's commercial. What commercial means, technically speaking, is that it's more than 4 units, okay? If you're talking to somebody about income properties and they're talking about residential income properties, that means that it's 4 units or less. They're looking at a fourplex, a triplex, a duplex, a single family home, maybe a condo, right? I don't love those. I love multifamily. For me, multifamily probably means about 20 units or more. So I'm not even going to look at it if it doesn't have 20 units. The reason is I want to run a business. I don't want a mom and pop shop. Okay, so here's the deal with multifamily income real estate. You're not owner occupying, so you need a down payment. If you're getting into, let's say, $1 million building, here in Anchorage, maybe that's 15, 20 units. If you're getting into that $1 million building, the bank's going to tell you, hey, Jerry, we need 20 to 25% down. Okay, so I need to be able to come up with $250,000. And so what that means is I need to get really, really good at saving money. All right. Now, with that money, when I put it into that multifamily real estate, keep in mind that equity position is buying me cash flow. So don't look at it as down payments are bad and I don't want to have equity. Equity is going to save your ass when 2008 happens. Okay, you put a decent amount of equity, you're literally buying cash flow. The less equity you have in it, the less money you put down, the lower your cash flow will be. Okay, now this is going to be a different line of thought. There's two lines of thoughts that I both agree with, and in the same step I disagree with. The first one is OPM, other people's money. Okay, I agree with that. We want to have other people's money. I don't want to have to put 100% of the down payment on this multifamily deal. So if I get 20 units and I've only got to put a quarter of the money down, I can get the bank to finance the other 3/4, and the tenants are paying that debt. I am not paying the debt. They live there. They're paying the debt. They're paying the interest. And oh, by the way, while they pay my interest, I'm going to deduct that payment off of my taxes, even though it was their money. Okay? Now, OPM is good, but again, you need the down payment. All right? Other people's money, cool, but your money's devaluing and it's basically garbage as well. So I don't care whether my money's in the deal or whether it's out of the deal. Either way, it's going down in value and it needs to be somewhere growing. All right? So that's why I love multifamily. Now, when you do multifamily commercial real estate, there are actually 4 or 5 ways that you make money, right? So we just talked about private lending. On a private lending deal, there's only one way you make money. You collect an interest payment, right? On multifamily real estate, I can make money with the income. I can make money with the interest deductions. I can make money with the depreciation and repairs on the buildings that I can also deduct on my taxes. I can make money on the appreciation. Now, with multifamily, when you talk appreciation, that's a little bit different as far as appreciation is concerned with like a single family home. Okay, so I can actually look at appreciation on a multifamily deal and say, hey, I actually might make money, and it's not going to just be a mirror of inflation. There is a lot of supply and demand depending on the market. Okay, so appreciation, and then I also have debt pay down. Okay, the tenants are paying the debt down for me. That's increasing my equity position in the building, and it's not my dime that's doing it, it's their money. So there's actually 5 ways to make money on multifamily deals. The other great thing is because on a multifamily real estate deal, you're using debt. If I lock in a deal, and I talked about this about 3 weeks ago, if I lock in a deal in 2017 and they say, hey, Jerry, we need $3,000 per month in 2017's dollars, guess what? The only time I'm ever actually paying them $3,000 a month is 2017. Because of inflation in 2018, that $3,000 that I'm giving the bank is no longer worth $3,000. And that's why you want to do a 30-year mortgage, because in 30 years, you're still paying them with 2017 dollars, $3,000 a month, and it's no longer worth anywhere near $3,000. It's probably chopped in half. Okay? So it's actually inflation protecting you. And then you also have control over the income. That's another reason I love multifamily is you can raise rent for inflation. You can refinance once you have a certain equity position. Okay, so those are some things you can't do with private lending. If I do a lending deal, and they say, hey, we're going to pay you $5,000 a month, cool, but that is $5,000 a month till the deal's done. I can't make that happen at a higher level. They're not going to raise it and pay me more interest rate unless I say, hey, let's do a variable rate deal, which nobody's going to do. They're going to do a fixed interest rate. So that's why I love multifamily. Again, it takes saving. So investing is awesome. It's not awesome if you don't know how to make money and you don't know how to save money. Okay, so if we're doing that $1 million deal, you got to be able to get $250,000, and you need to be able to get it into the deal and say it's mine and it's not borrowed. It's not it's something that I owe to somebody else. They're going to say, hey, prove that this is your money. Show us where it came from. Stick it in the deal. So I need to be able to earn income. I need to be able to save copious amounts of that income and continually increase it if I want to be in multifamily commercial real estate. Okay, so that's probably my second favorite investment is multifamily commercial real estate. And then the next one I'm going to talk about is actually my favorite because it's what I do full time. Okay, there is not a better investment out there than a small business. Hands down. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your stance is. There is not a single better investment out there than a small business. Now, there's a caveat to that saying, and there's a caveat to that position. If you don't know how to run a small business, then no, it's not a good investment. But if you understand every business is a sales organization, every business, I don't care what you do, you are a sales organization, you're creating an exchange with customers. And if you're ashamed of that, you probably need to stop what you do. If you think that sales is a bad word, get this fixed, all right? because sales is not a bad word. It actually comes from the word serve. You're exchanging value. Now, if you're not exchanging value, then you're ripping people off. Don't call that sales. Call that stealing. Call that theft. Okay? Now, the reason that I love small business is because it is a direct mirroring of the human potential. It is a direct mirroring of what you're capable of if you're the business owner. So there's 2 degrees that you can get involved in with small businesses. There might be the small business that I run and I own, like AG Capital Group. And the reason that I love that level of small business is the degree of control I have. I can make sales shoot up by having a 10-minute phone call with somebody. And you can't do that with any other investment. I cannot talk to a promissory note and make it pay me more money. I can't whisper into my 4plex or into my 20plex and make it pay me a higher income. That's only available with sales, because in sales, you're investing in people. In business, you're investing in people. People are always and will always be the best investment out there. And people are tough. That's the part about it. So if you're in small business and you're not doing well, A, I'd love to help you and coach you through that. But B, it might be because you don't understand how to deal with people. It is like babysitting. You will repeat yourself millions of times. You will say something and someone will say they understand it, and they'll do the exact opposite of what you told them to do, and they have no idea that they didn't do it properly. So small business, although it's my favorite, it's also the hardest. It's the most time consuming. It's the most intensive. It's going to be the most hands-on. Okay. Now, you still have great tax deductions. I can make $1 million this year with my business, and on my taxes, I don't have anything. Okay. Because I'm able to reinvest all of that back into my business. And that's a really unique thing. That's kind of like with multifamily real estate. The only difference is when I invest with my business, the payoffs are higher. So if I throw, let's say, $100 grand into maybe my multifamily deal, there's a certain cap on what that 100 grand will produce for me. At a certain point, that 100 grand is not going to produce more cash flow. I can fix things up. I can do updates, but I will only get so much out of that because of the market value where rents are at, etc. There's fixed reasons that I don't control. In my business, man, if I put the 100 grand in the right place, there's literally not a ceiling on how much that 100 grand can turn into. Okay? So small business, the first degree is you own it, you control it. The second degree of small business investing is almost like venture capitalism. It almost is, venture capitalism is where you find somebody that has an idea and they have a concept and you fund it. Okay. Now that's a totally different dynamic. You're removing yourself from control to a degree, and you're going to let this other person run the business and you're providing the funding. So if you have great communication skills, you're able to set expectations and you're on the same page, you almost need to treat that relationship like a marriage, okay? If you can do that and you guys are on the same page, that's a great way to invest, because again, you have still a higher degree of control than you'd have with a fourplex or a lending deal, but you still have people involved. And so now there's a middleman. You're not the owner directly. There's somebody in the middle. And so that inserts another, it's almost like telephone, right? That inserts another way for mistakes to happen, for miscommunications to happen. Okay. So that's small business. That's honestly my favorite, because I love that. I love the idea that I can call up Dan Kramer and say, Dan, let's have a 10-minute talk. And then Dan Kramer goes and kills it. Dan's one of my guys on my team. He's a superstar. So far we've talked private lending. We have talked multifamily commercial real estate. We have talked small business. Now, the next one that I want to talk about is owner or seller finance real estate. Okay. Now, I've talked to people and a lot of them don't know what this is, and it's because it doesn't get talked about a lot. And when you hear about it, it just kind of brushes off your back. Owner or seller finance real estate is where I own an asset. So let's say I own we'll go low on this one. Let's say I own a single family home. Okay. So if I'm in the Valley, I own a single family home. For those of you that are not in Alaska, the Valley is Wasilla. Right now it's overbuilt. Prices are pretty high. I think they're going to come down pretty hard. So we're going to have a lot of people that own houses that they're not super psyched about owning. There's a lot of cheap single family home rentals on the market. So if I'm one of those guys in the Valley that has that cheap single family home, I can rent it and say, hey, pay me, $1,300 a month and rent it. Or I can say, hey, you're going to pay me anyways. Why don't we do rent to own? So rent to own, pay me the payment, and it's going to be, $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 a month, whatever that number is, and it's going to be based on principal, interest, and terms. You're going to pay that to me. You're going to give me a down payment, and I'm going to be the mortgage company. Okay, so you're responsible. This is the beauty of it. You're responsible for fixing it. You're responsible for maintaining it. You're responsible for utilities. I don't have to play landlord if I do this. They own the property. They have the rights to ownership, and I just get to basically collect it like I'm the mortgage, right? If you have a mortgage at Wells Fargo, how much help does Wells Fargo give you when your roof leaks? None. That's the beauty of owner or seller finance real estate. Okay, so you can lend based on the property, and then what might happen is you do a 30-year deal with somebody and they pay it off and own it, and it's awesome, and you guys shake hands and they say, hey, that was a very good deal. We appreciate you. What also might happen in a worst case scenario is they might pay you for 5 years and default. So guess what you get to do if you're the owner finance and they default on you? You get to seize the property, take it back. If there's repairs that need to be done, you fix it up real quick. You stick it back on the market. You do it again. You collect another down payment, and you just keep repeating that. So what's unique on an owner or seller finance is you might actually make more money in a worst case scenario than a best case scenario, right? So if it's almost like a used car lot. If they keep revolving and they keep defaulting and I keep taking it back and putting it back on the market, collect another down payment, get another 5 years of payments, and they default and then I put it back on the market, this is literally what used car lots do. I can almost make more money doing that than just collecting it on a 30-year note with a perfect tenant that pays it off. Okay. Now, if I don't have my ducks in a row, that can be more work, right? If I'm the guy that when they default, I have to go fix it, yeah, that probably sucks. I don't like that. So you need to make sure that if you're doing it that way, you have a team, you've got contractors, you've got people that can do it for you so that you are truly an investor and it's not just another job. Okay. So those are the 4 ways. So just to review, private lending, one of my favorites because it's entry level. You don't have to have the same responsibility of ownership or running a business. Multifamily real estate is my second favorite because it's just a sweet investment. I mean, ultimately, even with small business, this is my philosophy on business. I don't care what your company is. Your company is on its way out. It might be on its way out now. It might take 20 years. It might take two generations. But at some point, Walmart won't exist. At some point, Apple won't exist. So every company out there is on a countdown to failure. It's going to peak. It'll be a bell curve, right? So that the high might be awesome. It's a really good company. At some point, it will be non-existent and it's gone, right? So multifamily, I don't think that happens. If you have a 200-unit apartment complex that you own, I don't think that's going anywhere. They're not going to tear 200 units down. Somebody always will need somewhere to live. And so you're going to own that for a really long time. And in a worst case scenario, let's say the whole thing burns down, you still have the land, you could go build another one, you could sell it, you can do what you want with it. So that's one of the reasons I love multifamily is I think that it's probably going to be the most obsolete, meaning that it can't get replaced easily. Whereas if I run a business, I can get replaced tomorrow, right? Small business is third. I love small business because it cash flows. You have control over how much it cash flows. You have the most spontaneous increases, and it's all a mirror of your human potential and what you're able to do, what you're capable of. If you can reflect that into your business is going to look great. And then the last one we talked about, owner or seller finance. So that's where I own the asset and I don't rent it out. Instead, I pretend I'm the mortgage company. They're going to pay me payments over 30 years. If they default, I'm going to take it back. I'm going to put it back on the market, get another down payment, and collect those payments again. So those are the 4 ways, all right? The reason that we talk about 4 ways to increase your passive income is because passive income is the only thing that truly matters. So if you're watching this and your goal is to build up a big pile of money for retirement in an account that's invisible, that you don't actually know who's managing it or anything about the account, and your plan is to sell that off over time, A, you're due to market volatility. It's going to go down as soon as the market comes down. B, you're paying numerous fees. C, you don't know where it is. You have no control over it. It's not cash flow. You're having to sell the share. Okay? If I'm doing multifamily real estate, I'm not having to sell the unit. The unit cash flows. Warren Buffett says that his favorite investment or his favorite holding period on an investment is forever. Okay? With that logic, if it's perfect, I shouldn't have to sell it for it to make income. if I have to sell it to make income, by definition, it's a bad investment. Okay, so those are the things I wanted to talk about today. A little quote here, basically, while we're speaking of Warren Buffett. He talked, I can't remember the quote exactly, but he's saying basically he likes to save money, but he likes to spend money even more. And that's more important to do when it matters. And this is why my philosophy on retirement is different. Warren Buffett, I think he's the second, third richest man in the world, related. If you're just saving money, saving, that's like waiting and saving sex for when you're in your 80s or 90s. Right? I mean, so if I'm married, there is no reason I have to wait. If I'm not married, dude, wait, do the abstinence thing. That's the appropriate thing to do. That's the right thing to do. But if I am married, it makes no logical sense to save sex till I'm 90. And that's why retirement is broken. Okay? You're saving all of the good stuff until you're old and it doesn't work anymore. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same experience. So we teach people, get passive income now, live life by design now, be generous now. Don't defer what you're capable of till you're 60 because somebody made a thing up called the 401k and somebody made something up called retirement and told you that it doesn't happen till you're 60. Okay? Everything's made up when you think about it. So that's the Fetta effect for today. Hey, if this inspires you, share it. I have a mission. My mission is to empower millions of leaders to own their God-given ultimate potential. So share. If you have questions on this, reach out to me, personal message me, email me, jerry@agcapitalgroup.com. I'll even give you my cell phone, 907-414-5337. If this offends you, all right, awesome. Let's talk about it. Have a great day. I'll talk to you guys next week. Be great this weekend. Do what you're capable of. Live life by design. And get wealthy. You need to. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to everyone around you. Next time, I'll see you guys. Bye.